Tacoma, Washington at America's Car Museum, North America's largest automotive museum. This is a big day for the museum. 3 of their classic cars from the collection will start a 2,400-mile trip to Detroit, Michigan, just in time for the Detroit show in January. So let's go along. Let's see what happens here. Rod, what's the significance of the drive home?
You know, it's an idea created that brings together a great auto show that we have in Detroit with all these new cars and concepts, and bringing home all these cars that were probably built in Detroit 50 and 60 years ago. Here they've been traveling for all these years and away from home, and now they're going to drive home over 3,000 miles to make it back to Detroit in time for the North American International Auto Show. So it's a great partnership all the way around.
But these are classics. I mean, you're dealing at the auto show with brand new cars and concepts. I mean, what kind of a match is that going to be in Detroit?
Well, you think about the heritage too. You never can forget where you came from, and that's all a part of it. And here we have this private museum, probably the best of its kind in the world, out here on the other side of the country, and having these cars that were available to come across the country and actually get them ready. Think about this too, those cars had to be prepared. Maybe the windshield wipers didn't work, they haven't been driven that much over the last 50 years, but they were built to be in ice and snow and rain, and we're going to take it right through the mountains, up and down hills, and it's going to be a great journey. But the whole point is, cars were meant to be driven. Let's take them out of the museum, put them on the road, and take them to Detroit.
The drive home actually starts here in America's Car Museum in Tacoma, Washington. From there, today we drive down to Portland, Oregon for a lunch stop and meet some car enthusiasts there, and end up tonight in Bend, Oregon. Tomorrow we go all the way over to Boise, Idaho. That's the second night, and then from Boise down to Salt Lake City. From Salt Lake City, the drive home goes to Grand Junction, Colorado, Lakewood, Colorado, Hays, Kansas, Kansas City, Missouri, St. Louis, Bloomington, Illinois, and then Chicago. Then from Chicago to Birmingham, and then Detroit, just in time for the North American International Auto Show.
This will be a rolling road show, and you've seen the map, you know where we're going. I won't bore you with all of that. We're going to end up in about 10 days in Detroit, where again, Quicken Loans jumped on, and the Rob Report and Opportunity Detroit, they're throwing a huge party. They have created 12 ice sculptures of these cars, full size, that are downtown Detroit, Cadillac Square. For the party they're going to throw when this thing arrives.
Okay, the cars are all getting ready to go, and it's time to go, so let's go. We are inside this beautifully restored 1966 Mustang. Paul Sabatini, this must be a dream come true.
Oh, it's great. It is just absolutely fabulous. We've had so much fun. We got here yesterday afternoon and got to tour the whole museum, and that museum is just absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
You know, seeing all the old cars and stuff, and we've had just so much fun here. I mean, it seems like we've been here like a week, and we just got here yesterday afternoon. It's unbelievable.
Well, this is quite an auto show, as it turns out, because this is something that's never been done before for any of the Detroit auto shows, NAIAS. What is the significance of the drive home to you?
Well, I mean, to us, it's like bringing all these cars home, right? I mean, you know, the Motor City, which we've always been known for in Detroit, you know, having, you know, a Mustang, the Chrysler, and a Chevy come back to the Motor City. And that was the whole theme that kind of, it's our theme for Detroit, that all roads lead to Detroit this year. That's our theme, which we've never had a theme in the auto show before. And I think once Rod kind of started putting this thing together with Dave, it just seemed like it was the right thing to have a theme this year, that all roads lead to Detroit. And now we've got these 3 iconic vehicles coming back to Detroit. So it's kind of it's great. You know, it was great to be able to come out here and start the trip out here from Tacoma, Washington, right here at the museum, and start heading back to Detroit. So it's going to be fun.
Yeah. So I got a feel that the Mustang is maybe your favorite of the three.
Just a little bit, you know, because I own a Lincoln store in Detroit. So you know what, I got, you know, that Ford blood still running through our veins. But you know what, this is for the auto show. So you know what, all the manufacturers are all represented, and that's what we love.
Is nostalgia a good thing for the auto show?
You know, I think it is. I think a lot of people love seeing and talking about, you know, how long the show's been going on, and I think it's great. I think people, you know, even walking through the museum last night and seeing cars from, you know, oh my gosh, they've got cars from the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, and seeing them, I think it's a good thing. I mean, it just, people love to talk about it. We all love to see all the new stuff, and I guess the great thing about it is seeing these cars, and like I was just telling you, grabbing the steering wheel, thinking we used to drive stuff like this, just, it's amazing that when we look at our auto show, the technology that's, you know, that is not in this vehicle, it's just, you know, how far we've come.
We are now in the definition of luxury in 1961. We are in this beautiful Land Cruiser here, the Chrysler 300G. Steve, you've been driving here for a couple minutes now. Give me some impressions.
This is an impressive car in a lot of ways, a little bit unimpressive in some other ways. This is not only a luxury car, but this was the definition of a luxury performance car in 1961. Some people think these Chrysler letter cars that began in 1955 are the first muscle cars because they were a regular car with a big, powerful engine. This one, for example, has a 413 V8 with two 4-barrel carburetors, making somewhere around 375 horsepower and lots of torque, I might add. It's got a push-button automatic transmission, but I'll tell you what's unimpressive is it just wallows all over the road. What they've done is intentionally adjusted the steering box so it's a little bit loose to prevent wear on this old steering box. So when you want to turn right or left, you know, turn the steering wheel and wait a little while, and then it comes around, kind of like steering a big boat. But it's a lovely, lovely car. It's got swivel seats, it's got a padded dash, it's got an interesting instrument panel that's kind of a bubble, kind of a plastic bubble with all the gauges inside. And as I mentioned, push-button transmission Chrysler used for probably a half a dozen years or so. But it's really interesting to drive. It's very quiet for a car of its age, very stylish. This was one of Virgil Exner's designs. He was Chrysler's famous design director through the 1950s and most of the 1960s, penning some of the most beautiful, exorbitant, extravagant designs anywhere. Of course, high design was big in those days, so Virgil Exner was right in the hunt.
The 1961 Chrysler 300 is an iconic vehicle. When you see vehicles like that in your daily job, what impact does that have on what you're doing every day?
Well, you know, we go to the research center all the time. We have a center, we keep all of our historic vehicles, and I bring my designers there constantly. One, to remind us our past, respecting it. You know, we look at ourselves as shepherds of the brands. You know, we have to leave the brands better than we found them. And part of that process is respecting where you come from and learning that you have permission sometimes to make a vehicle that has an oversized grille. Why? We did it in the past. People get it. And it creates icons. I'm a big believer in icons. And if a car is beautiful, it'll always be beautiful. You know, and that's what I get out when I look at our history. I'm like, why, that car still makes me tear in my eye when I look at it. And you always think about, wow, what were the designers thinking when they did that? And I want our newer product to have that same lineage and at the same time underscore the brand's value. So yes, I look at the past. We're not beholden to it. We try to always step forward, but at the same time respect our DNA and keep building our DNA strength.
So anyway, look around this interior a little bit. We have a big console down the drive shaft, goes all the way through to the back seat, making for 2 big bucket seats in the back as well. But the driving experience is pretty interesting with this odd steering. It's very, very assisted power steering, as are the brakes. So you have to drive this thing with a light touch, for sure.
Even the rear view mirror, Steve, is an interesting position, isn't it?
Yeah, it's setting right in the middle of the dash. Gives you a very nice view, and it really doesn't obstruct the front view at all. So that's really a nice position for it, rather than having it hanging from the ceiling. I think that's better than a modern car. But this outside mirror out on the fender, little tiny thing, you can't see much of anything in the oncoming lane with that one. All you can see is that stylish fender sticking in the back.
We can't really show it, but Steve, the other hallmark of this car, of course, were the swivel seats to get in the car. They swiveled out and back in, making ingress and egress very, very easy. In the back seat, we have actually Bice, who is working in development for the museum. Now, you're enjoying the back seat.
I am. It's very spacious. I feel like I am in the lap of luxury and being chauffeured to our destination in Salt Lake City. Thank you, Steve, for letting me be your VIP passenger.
Well,
My pleasure indeed.
We can't let Steve drive this by himself. He has to have a little oversight here.
That's right.
I mean, because Steve will drive it the way Steve likes to drive. But actually, Steve's a pretty good driver.
I don't think I'd want to drive this one very fast because of that loose steering. That would be quite a challenge.
We're inside the 57 Chevy Nomad, driving between Boise and Salt Lake City. Steve Purdy from the Auto Channel is sitting next to me here, and this is Valerie O'Shea in the back seat.
Hi.
She's the executive assistant at the America's Car Museum in Tacoma, Washington. Steve, you actually owned a 57 Chevy at one point.
I did in my younger days when I was between jobs. My brother Wendell bought me a 1957 Chevy for 60 bucks from one of his clients. It had no suspension in the rear, it had fenders of 4 different colors, but it was a 283 power pack, so it was a pretty meaty car. Great fun to drive, maybe got 5 miles to the gallon, but at that point gasoline was 25 cents a gallon, so it was no big deal. I'd go into the gas station and say, give me a couple of bucks worth of cheap stuff, and I'd drive all night on it. There's no power steering. It does not have an on-center movement to it at all, but you feel every bit of the road through that. Look at this skinny steering wheel. It's like holding a pencil. It's so narrow and skinny, but it's really cool. In this this Nomad we're in, and we won't call it a Nomad wagon because that would be redundant. A Nomad is a wagon, a 2-door wagon. Very collectible. Chevy made them from 55 through 57. Not very many of them, which makes them very collectible. But this one is not stock. This one has a 283. I mean, this one has a 327. The original would have had a 283 V8. That also has a 4-speed manual transmission, and the original would have only come with a 3-speed on the column. So this has a Hurst shifter on the floor, and I'm not sure what kind of a transmission is behind it, but it's, again, a very visceral experience when you try to modulate the clutch and the shifter and all the other, and the non-power steering and all the other things you have to do with this car. But another wonderful thing about it is the sound. In modern cars, they go to great pains to deaden all the sound, and this one is not. You can hear the rumble of the engine, you can hear the tires, you can hear just about everything. There's a little twitter in the dash that goes along with the car. I think it's because they disconnected the speedometer because it was starting to chirp or something. So that's probably the cable, the mechanical cable that goes from the speedometer to the transmission, just rattling along inside the steering column there, or the dash there. But another nice thing about an old car like this, and all of the cars that we're driving today, is when you look out over the hood, it has character. A modern car normally will just be a little bit of a dome. Some of them you can see a little bit of a fender line, but look at this. It has two rocket-like projections out of the hood. The fenders are very distinctive with a little ridge down them, and you feel like you're driving a car with this wonderful old thing. So behind the wheel of a car like this is truly a wonderful experience, and one, for me, that's pretty nostalgic.
Keith, what's the significance of this drive home?
I think what it does is it shows that old cars are not just to be seen in museums, but they can be seen out on the road. I think it also shows that you don't have to have a perfect, pristine car that you're afraid to take out. These cars downstairs are very handsome, but they're not perfect, so it's okay if they get wet, they get muddy, they get some rock chips, you eat your candy bar and throw the wrapper on the floorboards. Cars are about use, and you get value in use. So the people who get to drive these cars, what an adventure they're going to have. Wintertime, the Rockies, Mount Hood. I mean, I'm partly jealous, but also partly I think I'll enjoy reading about it. But I just think it's great. The cars are back where they belong, on the highway, going to their birthplace, Detroit.
I'm very pleased with the way that they're doing. The cars are driving great, they're running great. We've had a little bit of an issue with an ignition switch, but other than that, haven't had to get out and work on any of them. That's a real blessing for me, and the cars are, two of them haven't used a drop of oil. One of them has used a little bit of oil, but that's to be expected with the age of these cars. But the tires have worked great in the snow. All in all, we've done real good, and that's thanks to my volunteers working so hard to get these cars ready.
So they just stay on with a magnet or suction, or what is it?
Yeah, it's a suction cup. And amazing device. Bill, how do you prep these cars for a grueling trip like this?
Well, ACM actually put a clear mask on right above from the belt line down of clear vinyl that is going to protect the car. Actually, when the car was being prepped, the whole underbody of the car was weatherproofed with undercoating, and things were taken apart, greased, and of course we've got these great Michelin tires on the car, which have been a blessing.
How they held up so far?
Traction's not been an issue. We really haven't. It's nothing to report there. They ride quiet and just seem to track well.
Michelin's been a good sponsor. You've got several sponsors here, stickers on the side of the car, logos that are very well-known folks. But you've got a lot of support, and the cars are holding up pretty well so far.
Team has been great. Our sponsors have been great. Shell Gas, it's, as they say, it's gas, tires, and oil. Right. Michelin, Shell, and some of the other sponsors, State Farm and Haggerty. It's been a terrific ride. Couldn't do it without them.
Crist. I'm the collections manager for Lemay, America's Car Museum, and we are riding today in a 1957 Chevrolet Bel Air Nomad station wagon.
Let's see, how does that Chevy song go again?
See the USA in a Chevrolet, da 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 da.
See the USA in your Chevrolet, da 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 da.
See the USA in your Chevrolet. America's asking you to call. Drive your Chevrolet through the USA. America's the greatest land of all. How's that?
Drive home is over. The three cars are here in Detroit at the North American International Auto Show, where they intended to be all along. But it's quite an adventure. Let's think about that for a second. Very few cars at their age get this kind of ride. I mean, it's an amazing trip when you think about it. You know, it was fun most of the time. It was difficult sometimes too. Like that first night, going over the Mount Hood Pass in snow and ice in that '66 Mustang. My drive was with Ashley Bice. We talked about that adventure midway over the pass. Where the heck are we?
We are somewhere in Mount Hood National Forest. Point undetermined at the moment.
I see a lot of snow here.
Quite a bit of snow.
And you've been driving through a lot of snow too, haven't you?
We have, but thanks to Michelin, we have good winter tires and traction has been with us.
One of my favorite points of laughter was that first morning in Bend, Oregon, when the locks froze on the '57 Chevy Nomad.
Well, this could be a problem. I feel like we don't even have the right key here. Come on, baby. Try the front.
understand you know how to get into a Nomad.
I do know how to get in a Nomad. There's several ways. You can use the key and go in the front door, or if the door locks are frozen, you can open the back hatch and slide up through the back all the way to the front. Gracefully, I may add. Make sure this doesn't fall on my head, please.
Oh, there you go.
Shot about 30 seconds ago.
Yay! This trip wouldn't have been much unless we had Derek, our photographer, along to document this fabulous, fabulous journey. But Derek got attacked by his own drone.
We had 3 drone crashes and a crushed GoPro. So,
I recall you showing us a sleeve of your coat that had some duct tape on it.
It did. It did. Yeah, we had one of our sponsors is Shell, and we had a GoPro go down in a Shell parking lot. And it went upside down, and I went to grab it, and it was in full flight. It thought it was in full flight at the time. Turned out to be a bad GPS update, so I had to grab the drone and hold it while I was operating the app to try to shut off the drone. And so while doing that, you know, instead of letting it go and take out a bunch of patrons at the show, I decided to hold it, and I had just gotten this brand new, really nice down jacket, and yeah, decided to tear into the jacket and shoot feathers across the parking lot.
No fun, nothing.
I think we had a little bit of fun.